Today with the first pick, we're ranking the first-round rookie quarterback performances from week 1 of the preseason. We'll also highlight some rookie non-QBs who caught our eye. And yes, Rick, I know, it's the preseason, but I don't care because real football is back, even if some of us on this podcast have a history of overreacting to preseason games.
Oh, my God. Here, I can't wait for this one. Everybody's going to the Hall of Fame. Get out the yellow jackets. Start measuring them up now.
Yeah, I don't want to name names. We'll also talk about year 2 quarterbacks, Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. We'll hit on some injury news. Hang around to the end for an update on the old dollar bets tracker, or as I like to call it, Rick's losing yet again. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's Rick Spielman. This is episode 172. And Rick, as we always like to do, how many days till the 2025 NFL draft?
It's Ryan, if you didn't know, and I'm assuming you don't have eyes in the back of your head to see that. So I'm going to tell you, there are actually 253 days until the 2025 NFL draft. 253, Ryan.
It's been over 110 days since the draft. That's time's a flying.
It is. It's coming on. It's creeping on you fast.
You know what they say, the older you get, the faster time moves. And it feels like it. Somebody says that. All right, look, do us a favor. Take a second to hit the old like button here on YouTube and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And go ahead and leave us a mailbag question or nominate a draft-eligible FBS or FCS player for us to evaluate this fall, because the fall is almost upon us. It only takes a second, and it helps grow the show. All right, Rick, let's get to it.
Are we doing 5-star reviews?
We're going to.
Okay.
When they leave a name, we watch them. That's how we got on the Malachi Starks last year.
Yeah. Can we make that clearer once we get going again? The 5-star reviews, they're not 5-star high school recruits. Right. Yes. I would propose you and the upper ups, because I'm not involved in the management decisions, come up with a new besides 5-star review.
Fair enough. We're Producer Harry's with us again. We are talking to a party of one. Everyone on planet Earth understands 5-star reviews except Rick, but we'll make it clear for Rick going forward. Leave us a good review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. 5-star athletes. We're all 5-star athletes today, Rick, because this is like Christmas for me, because everyone is great, and I can't wait to talk about it. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks first, the rookies. And no real drama here, but Producer Harry did all the hard work yesterday and made up some graphics. Let's look at the quarterback rankings for the rookie first-round picks. We watched every single snap of every single player among those 6 rookies, and the only difference is that they're the same. The only difference is, if you're listening, Rick fell asleep and didn't watch Jayden Daniels and Maye.
I did. I'm just being realistic that I cannot make an evaluation off 2 screen passes and 1 deep ball throw.
Well, I did, and that's why I had Jayden 4th. But at the top, no surprise, Caleb Williams was number 1 for both me and Rick, then J.J. McCarthy. I thought J.J. and Bo were pretty close in terms of the rankings we're doing here. You agree with that?
A little bit, but I'll get into why.
Oh, spicy.
There's a difference. Yes, there is.
And then Michael Penix Jr. Was 4th on Rick's list. He would have been 4th on my list had I not included Jayden and Drake, neither of whom played. They didn't play combined. Made 10 attempts, I don't think. They were on the field for 1 series, maybe 3 total. But I thought Michael Penix Jr. did some good things as well. But let's start at the top with Caleb. I was doing a little peacocking around my living room watching Caleb. Again, week 1 of the preseason, you got to calm down. I can't calm down because I'm so excited. But a year ago, C.J. Stroud didn't do particularly well in week 1. Bryce Young did okay. It doesn't mean anything. But I thought after the first attempt, in which it looked like Caleb tried to make something out of nothing and rolled right, caused right tackle Darnell Wright to get a holding call because he held the ball on too long. After that, it looked pretty exciting if you're a Bears fan. It looked pretty exciting if you're Matt Eberflus, Shane Waldron, whomever. What did you take away from what Caleb was able to do with what in my mind, he had at least 3, maybe 4 big-time throws?
Yeah, I think why he was number 1 on my list was not the gaudy stats, but the unique plays that he made that other rookie quarterbacks we'll talk about had some nice stats and were accurate, and we'll get into all that. But he made some throws that I haven't seen many quarterbacks be able to make. And so that's why the Bears fans should be pretty excited. We talked about getting outside the pocket and throwing that 20-yard rope on a comeback route along the sideline to his right. That not a lot of quarterbacks, even veteran quarterbacks, can make that type of throw on the move. The no-look screen pass.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. Well, yay. So, but before we get going, you got to remember, okay, I kind of charted this. There were 3 coverages that I've seen, except the Dallas game we'll talk about when we get into Stetson Bennett. But they play man coverage. They play cover 2, cover 3. There's no combination coverages, man zone, quarter halves. And it's pretty basic. So these guys or these quarterbacks that have a lot of experience in college have seen those coverages. They're pretty simple coverages. A few blitzes here and there to recognize the blitzes, but I will recognize the ability, because the thing that stuck out about all these guys, I thought they all got through the progressions well. They didn't look like a deer in headlights. They were accurate underneath. They did a lot of really positive things, but it was against a very basic defense. There was no game planning going on. So it does change now. So once you get into the regular season and people start game planning, like the stuff that Caleb Williams put on tape, not only his arm talent outside the pocket, but you have to make sure you account for his legs, because he made a nice scramble up through the middle, got another first down, missed some throws. But for the most part, I put him on top because not so much of the stats, but of the unique type throws that he made, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And in terms of missing throws, the last throw he attempted was in the back of the end zone to Rome Odunze. He said afterwards that he and Rome talked about that. He thought Rome was going to go to the back pylon, and Rome was sort of flatter in the scramble drill route. But again, he knew what he was seeing. Rome knew what he was seeing, and they were not quite on the same page, but they were certainly reading the same book. The run you talk about, the scramble, got down, didn't take a hit. You've been preaching that for months, years, in terms of Anthony Richardson, for example. And the other thing, what else was going to, this is why, and again, this could blow up my face. I'm fine with that right now. This is why I never got last fall people trying to talk me and other folks into Drake Maye being quarterback 1. The things that, and this isn't an indictment of Drake Maye. This is more about Caleb. I don't care that he's 6'1". He had a lot of turnovers last year. That's because he was the only show in town in that offense. The offensive line was terrible. The defense was even worse. It seemed a pretty, like in terms of evaluations, and you've been doing this a lot longer than me, this seemed like a pretty straightforward one to me.
Yeah, I don't think either of us had anyone but Caleb Williams all the way straight through from.
But there were people talking about it on the internets.
Oh, that's why they have the internet, so people can talk.
That's why they have, that is true. All right, great performance. Not a lot to feel. So let me ask you this. So if you go in to watch the film on Monday, whenever you watch the film, you probably don't sit in on that, but what's the feeling around the building when you see the way Caleb played? If you're the head coach and even the GM who had to,
I would definitely sit on in all that.
Okay.
Yeah. I sat in with the offense, with the defense, sat in the meetings with the players, wanted to hear what the coaches were correcting, because from the box, I don't know what the exact play call is. I don't know what the exact assignment is. So by me sitting in there the next day, and you go through the film evaluation, you sit with the coaches, this guy had an MA, he should have stepped here, he should have done this, he should have done that. So those are the things that aren't publicly known. But from me, and when we're trying to determine the final 53, I thought it was extremely important for me to sit into all those meetings to listen as well.
Would you just sit watching from your suite, not necessarily talking to anyone except who's around you? You come away.
Working booth, not a suite, a working booth. I was a working man.
You would have to have been, if you're in Ryan Poles' shoes, extremely excited about the prospects of what Caleb showed in Buffalo, right?
Excited about so many unique throws. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of things that they have to get corrected, but for the most part, he looked like he had command of the offense for how he played. They did play like he was the one that started the game, and I believe they had some of their number 1 guys out there. So that was encouraging to see. He was playing against some real dudes, even though it was basic zone coverages and things like that. Not a lot of complications to it, but you were excited more about some of the physical traits that we saw in college that made him the number 1 overall pick. That translated to this first preseason game.
And one of the things that the Bills are trying to figure out is the secondary, the safety position in particular. So just something to keep in mind when you talk about all the stuff you talk about when it comes to preseason. All right, number 2 on the list, JJ McCarthy. Came out. He didn't look a little tight, but I thought the interception was just he threw it behind the receiver. He was trying to scramble to his right, and Jack Jones jumped the route, made a nice play. After that, and after the starters on both sides of the ball made their way to the bench, he got hot. That's fine. Threw 2 touchdown passes after halftime. 2 long passes. Talk about guys that are running wide ass open. Whatever. He made the throw, hit the guy in stride, touchdown. He showed his arm strength, and I always thought he had a really good arm. There were people last year that were questioning his arm strength. The athleticism was there. He looked a little frenetic at times, but I thought he calmed down as the game progressed. And the asterisk to all this is that he has a meniscus injury. He's going to have to undergo surgery, and we don't know what the timeline is going to be in his return based on what Kevin O'Connell said, because it's based on the procedure and what they find out there. But all told, I thought a pretty good start to his career.
Yeah, it was a little rough in the beginning, first couple of snaps, but once he settled down, the thing that I was impressed with was his presence and poise in the pocket. He knew when to step up in the pocket. He could feel pressure coming from the outside. Watching Vegas and their defense, they played some man coverage now, and when they had man coverage, there was some coverage busts on why those guys were wide open, but you have to give them credit for stepping up in the pocket, for seeing the busted coverages, or just, I think the first long run was the corner just got beat out of his turn on the left-hand side, but he was accurate down the field with his throws. Some of the things that people were criticizing him for, about can he make all the deep throws and all the throws necessary at the NFL, I always went back, and you can check the other podcasts. I go back to that TCU game 2 years ago, said that 100 times. I know he threw 2 TD picks for touchdowns for interceptions, interceptions for touchdowns. But you've seen all the things you kind of seen and flash in this game. So I was kind of impressed with his feel in the pocket. His accuracy was off a little bit at times. The throws he hit, I'm going to give him total credit for, because they were on time and they hit the receiver in stride. I'd like to see it a little bit more tight window throws when the real dudes are out there, and if there's not that much space between a receiver and a DB. That's the only thing that I didn't check the box, because I didn't see enough of it. I think he can do it. But overall, very good performance. And just like Caleb, JJ took shots down the field, and it was fun to see. A lot of times when these rookies come in, they are going to be, and some of these guys we're going to talk about, they don't take many shots down the field. But JJ did, Caleb Williams did, Michael Penix Jr., who we'll talk about. All those guys weren't afraid to take the chunk plays and take shots down the field, which I was impressed with.
And sometimes it feels like when you watch these young players out there for the first or second time, everything is sped up. So they have their first read, and then everything gets blurry. They scan the field, and then they run or escape the pocket. And we'll talk about a young man who seemed to struggle to stay in the pocket, a clean pocket, most of the time, was throwing off balance, and sometimes that affected his accuracy, at least down the field. But for JJ, I think you're right. Started a little slow, had the interception, and then got progressively warmer. The injury stinks for him, but I think this is Sam Darnold's team either way. So this might actually be a bonus for JJ to have to slow down a little bit. Do you think that's right or not?
Yeah, everybody's going to feel good about JJ coming off the first preseason game. Now you have that to make you feel good as he goes through and gets his knee scope, and probably be ready in, I don't know, 3-4 weeks maybe. May have to start the season on IR to begin with, and then be ready to go. I still think, though, if they're struggling and they have a very tough first 5 games of the season, when they come back from London after playing the Jets over in London, bye week, and then Detroit, that is at the JJ McCarthy time, depending on where they're at record-wise through those first 5 games.
I love how you're trying to talk your old team into starting a rookie quarterback against your new team. All right, Producer Harry, let's take a break since we're already 15 minutes in, and then when we come back, Rick and I will continue talking about the ranking these rookie quarterbacks after this week 1 preseason performance. We'll do that right after this.
You hear that? It's the steady pulse of the world's game that's turning fans into family and sports into passion. You hear that? It's the heartbeat of American soccer. The USL on CBS Sports Network.
All right, Rick, number 3 on our list, Bo Nix. We both thought Bo Nix was a day 2 guy. He ended up going 12th overall, the 6th quarterback to be drafted in the first round. That was historical. And the first throw, it looked like he rushed through his read and almost threw an interception in the middle of the field when he was late to Greg Dulcich, the tight end who looked like he got banged up pretty good on that late throw to the safety, met Greg at the ball. After that, he calmed down. And there may not be a more accurate passer on short and intermediate throws, speed outs. The touchdown pass to Marvin Mims was a laser, right on time, good footwork. My issue with Bo Nix's first performance, and this again can change over the course of a week of practice, I imagine, is that he was a little antsy in the pocket. He would step up in pockets that were clean and then find himself throwing off platform when he didn't need to. It affected his accuracy on some throws. On the throw, the laser to the left to Cortland Sutton for 20-plus yards, that was a great play. He was flush from the pocket. But in general, I would like to have seen him stand in the pocket, and he didn't necessarily have to take a hit because the pressure wasn't there, but just stand in the pocket and plant your feet and throw the football. So that's why I had him ranked 3rd, although I thought overall he did pretty good.
He was a little antsy in the pocket, but I liked his movement skills in the pocket. He seemed to feel the rush a little bit more than some of these other guys. I thought they took a very conservative approach with him. A lot of spacing routes, a lot of short to intermediate throws. I think I only charted 2 completions, a plus 15 down the field. The one you were talking about, I thought he was accurate underneath, both throwing to his left and his right, but it was not a lot of chunk plays. And in order to score points in the NFL, you're going to have to throw some chunk plays down the field. And that's the one thing that I didn't see him do. I don't, the one hit that you were talking about, the tight end going down the seam, that was a little late and it lit the tight end up. And those are some of the things that I saw in college. Not that he can't throw deep, but I think that he forces it into coverage or hesitates a little bit before he goes. But all the underneath stuff was fine. I just thought they went for a more conservative approach versus a lot of zone coverage defense. And wanted to make sure that I think that he performed well in his first preseason game. So I don't know how much game planning they did, but it seemed like they took the approach more than some of these other quarterbacks of not taking as many chunk throws down the field.
I will say this, and I just double-checked my notes. He did have – it was 2nd and 11 from the 22-yard line, and it was just a post safety, and he had Josh Reynolds out wide to his right, and he threw a perfect fade back in the end zone to Josh Reynolds on right between his hands. And that was one of the deep throws that he made that didn't show up in the stat sheet because Josh dropped it. But to your larger point, there were fewer of those throws than we saw from the other quarterbacks we talked about, and another one we'll talk about here in a second. But good start, B plus start. I mean, there are things to work on, not to be upset about.
Yeah, there's no one that we're going to talk about just say, geez, you're not going back the next morning and say, what the hell did we just do?
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Bo Nix, week 1 starter for you?
I think he's ahead of Stidham just off of this week. Now it'll be interesting to see if they start Bo Nix this week and Stidham comes in later. But if you look, Zach Wilson had good stats. They all had good stats. They all were pretty conservative in the offense, making sure they got completions, I would say.
Okay. All right. Next up, let's do Michael Penix Jr. Since Rick had him 4 and he took more snaps than the other 2 young men we'll talk about in a second. I had Michael Penix Jr. 5 just because I'm a huge Jayden Daniels guy. But Michael Penix Jr., big arm. Here's the thing that stood out to me. He can throw without setting his feet. He's probably number 2 behind Caleb in terms of doing that for me, where he can just reset his upper body and just the ball comes out of his hands pretty quickly. It looks like a long windup, but he has a pretty quick release. The touch on the deep ball is what we saw at Washington. I was impressed with what he was able to do. The problem, of course, is he's not going to play this year if Kirk Cousins is healthy.
Yeah, all the things I agree with. Some of the times when he does not set his feet, that's when the ball sails on him some. I think his accuracy will fall off at times when he is not able to set his feet and trying to throw off his back foot. So I thought some of the inaccurate throws that you see, or the guys he missed in stride, were because of his mechanics inside the pocket with his feet. Seeing the deep ball arm talent that you saw coming out of college, needs to be a little bit more accurate with some of the like fades in the end zone and things like that. The one thing, if I had one big critical evaluation on him, it's off of play action. He needs to speed up the process. He makes the ball fake, but then he's too nonchalant.
Yep.
Getting his head up the field and getting the ball out of his hands.
And that deep out was what you're talking about on that one?
Yeah, there were a couple of them. There was another one too where he, but the deep out was really, really evident, where he gives the ball fake, but then he's just too casual, getting his head up and off the ball fake and getting the ball out of his hands. You don't have that time like you had in college. So he needs to speed up his processing, especially off of play action fakes.
Yeah, it was almost two different plays. The first half of the play was slow, and then once he realized where the receiver was in the route, he did speed it up, and he threw an absolute dime, and it hit him right in the hands. He just threw the receivers out of bounds. So to your point, that has to all match the drop in the route and all that other stuff. But he can make the throw. He saw the throw, and he has the arm strength to get the throw there. It's just a matter. And I think you're right about the footwork. I was thinking more about off-platform on these short throws when he has to reset quickly and get down to the check down, but sometimes his footwork seemed to let him down on the deeper throws. I know he missed one to the right on a speed out. I thought some of the routes the receivers ran, a lot of the guys were young receivers, didn't help him with some of those fades down the field. But again, I'm not going to pick nits here. I thought he did pretty well for an initial start. But again, there's no way he plays if Kirk's healthy, right?
Nope.
And that brings us back to the conversation we've been having for 110 days now. But all right, good job, Michael Penix Jr. I don't know what to tell you. Keep working hard. Your dreams will come true. All right, next up, my guy Jayden Daniels. As you noted, he didn't play a whole bunch. I'm okay with that. But the first throw, he looked pretty amped up on the screen to Austin Eckler. What did you think about the second throw when Cliff Kingsbury called a screen? And Jayden was asked about this after the game, and he checked out of it. Now, Dan Quinn, your buddy, said that I don't know if he should be checking out of things at this point. It felt like Top Gun buzzing the tower. You didn't ask for permission. You just did it, which I thought was a pretty funny thing to say. Checked out of the screen because he said there were too many people. The line of scrimmage was muddled, and he just threw that deep ball to De'Ami Brown, which you've seen him throw a million times last year to Malik and Brian Thomas Jr. That was fun. And then the other throw, of course, or the other play, of course, was the RPO keeper, where he outran everyone to the end zone on that 3-yard touchdown run, which we could also see a lot of. Didn't get touched there as well, which is also something you want to see from Jayden, staying healthy and upright. Yeah,
I think what he saw was that the corner was up in press coverage, and when he was talking about everybody up at the line of scrimmage, I think he recognized it was man. So when he audibled out of it, usually, which was a very mature decision, when a rookie can recognize that, hey, they're in press, let me just throw the ball down the field, and made a great throw on that deep ball. But I just didn't have enough to go off of to say he went through everything we just talked about on these other quarterbacks. You can see the speed and athleticism, even though it was a 3-yard run. So I'll actually be there tomorrow for the combined practices with the Miami Dolphins. So I'm anxious to watch him tomorrow in these controlled practices.
And we've talked about this before last summer, but you agree, or where are you on the contention that joint practices can sometimes be better than preseason games?
I am for joint practices wholeheartedly because
it
gives you another evaluation. You can get all your number ones, a lot of work in a controlled environment, as long as you're not knuckleheads and start fighting, which is absolutely insane to me. Good for the league for fining Detroit and New York $200,000 for trying to prove who's the biggest tough guy. It's not a tough guy competition. You're out there to get better and work against each other. I love Jared Mayo's quote. He says, if any starters fight in our combined practices, they'll play the whole preseason game. Any backups that fight during the practices will not see the field for a preseason game.
That is a great segue to Drake Maye, because our buddy Tom Fernelli, who's with the Cover 3 podcast, tweeted out Drake Maye should get in a fight so he doesn't have to play any more preseason games, because things, I don't want to say they're dire in New England, But yesterday they had a joint practice with the Eagles, and these were some of the reports coming out of that practice. This is from Chad Graff of The Athletic. He said Drake Maye would have been sacked five times on his final 6 dropbacks and 6 times in his final 9 dropbacks against the Eagles. Andrew Callahan of the Boston Herald tweeted out, the Patriots quarterbacks got sacked on 10 of 48 dropbacks in team periods today. That's 21% of the time. And the big issue is the offensive line, which we've talked about for 2 years. They drafted a bunch of guards 2 drafts ago. They tried to get better with Caden Wallace, and they signed Chuck Okorafor this time around. They have real issues. And we talked to why Caden Wallace would be the left tackle when he played right tackle at Penn State. They're trying to make him to a left tackle now. We'll talk about all that stuff in the coming weeks and months, I'm sure. Drake Maye only got, I think he was 2 of 3 for 19 yards. Not a lot to go on. He looked fine. The other thing I'll ask you is this. Do you think there's any concern about doing to Drake Maye what happened to Mac Jones? Because Mac Jones played a lot as a rookie, and he did okay, but then things went sideways for him. Are they just bringing him along slowly because he's 21 years old and there's no reason to subject him to what could potentially be a terrible outcome with the way the offensive line's playing?
I think they had a game plan going in because they signed Jacoby Brissett right off the bat in free agency and probably told him, you're our starter. We're going to draft a young quarterback, but you're going to be the bridge starter. And maybe something similar to what Minnesota is doing with Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy. But you sure in the heck don't want to put this kid out there and not have a chance if their offensive line is as porous as is being reported.
So no offensive line, no wide receivers to speak of in terms of veterans, at least. They have Kendrick Bourne, who's hurt. They drafted Javon Baker on day 3. He's been flashing at training camp. Jalen Polk, we've talked about, the 2nd-round pick when they passed on Ladd McConkey. I'm assuming, I didn't see the report, but I would guess that's why Brandon Ayuk didn't want to go to New England, because the quarterback situation, the offensive line situation, lack of offense situation. But yeah, Drake Maye was fine. He 2 of 19. He did 2 of 3 for 19 yards. Still what he was asked to do. No real comment on what that means for him as a rookie.
He was very good with the 2 screens he completed.
Yeah, and I think the other throw was
amazing how you can rank guys off of 2 screen passes.
Well, he had to throw in the middle of the field that was incomplete, which wasn't his fault. It was to Debo's Jalen Reagor, who had the ball hit him in the hands and dropped it. That was actually a pretty good throw. All right, so that's our rankings of the first-round rookie quarterbacks. You have to hang around and see if we talk about another rookie quarterback, my favorite player on planet Earth. Hey, Producer Harry, you have the graphic of the rookie quarterback performances from last season? Of course you do. So here's what happened in week 1, and probably more me than you, but I could not quit gushing over Dorian Thompson-Robinson's week 1 performance in the preseason last year, 9 to 10 for 102 yards. We talked him up big time. I talked up Stetson Bennett big time last year. I said he would start 3 games for the Rams. I think it was one of our dollar bets. He came back. He threw 4 interceptions in year 2. He played the entire game for the Rams, I believe. He did have the game-winning drive, but he took the year off. I think it was mental health issues. I can't remember the specifics, but he came back and did some good things and did some not so good things. But anyway, the point, Rick, is that maybe we should all take a deep breath here, and you should quit overreacting to 1 week of preseason games.
Oh, yeah. C.J. Stroud was a bust last year after week 1.
The Ravens, the Patriots, actually. We were talking more about Keon White than Bryce Young a year ago.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, wild times. All right, let's look at the year 2 quarterback graphic that you made up from a year ago, Producer Harry, and then we'll get into the quarterbacks we're going to talk about here. So this is quarterbacks in year 2, how they did this weekend. Anthony Richardson, 2 of 4, didn't play a whole lot, didn't do anything to change anyone's mind. He scrambled once, got out of bounds. Thank you for that. Will Levis, 4 of 5. He took a silly hit in my mind, Rick. I don't know what you think about that.
Dumb.
And then he came right back and ran the quarterback sneak to score. But he's got to stop doing that. C.J. Stroud, I don't have – C.J.'s fine. He could have gone out there and thrown 25 interceptions. He'd be fine. I mentioned Stetson Bennett there, the touchdown on the 4 interceptions, then Aiden O'Connell. It looks like Gardner Minshew, just me guessing, is probably going to get that job, even though Aiden went 7-9 for 76 yards. Any thoughts on Anthony Richardson, Will Levis in particular? There's no reason to talk about C.J. Stroud. We know who he is. Bryce Young didn't play, but AR-15, AR-5 now back from the injury, and then Will Levis in year 2 with a new coaching staff there in Tennessee.
Yeah, Richardson, I think, was more just getting his feet wet again, getting out there and playing. It was smart. I do still question some of his accuracy issues from the pocket. That's even though we didn't see a large sample size, I'm not sold on his accuracy.
Rust or just legit concern?
Legit concern, because we've seen it in college too.
All right.
So Will Levis, I thought for the first time running Brian Callahan's offense looked comfortable. Most of his shots were underneath, got through the progressions fast. Just don't know, what are we doing? It's a first preseason game. Are you going to really dive and try to, please?
He got hit pretty hard
on the sideline again because you're not a knucklehead. CJ Stroud, all you need to see was a tank down post for a touchdown. Bennett was painful to watch, but I will give, he went against Coach Zimmer's defense, and Coach Zim was showing double A gap. He was blitz. He's the only one that looked like a game plan for the preseason. And poor Stetson Bennett had no idea reading the coverages that were going on. He actually threw 5 interceptions. 1 did not count. So that was a rough go for Stetson. Although I give him credit, he just hung in there and kept flinging it to the wrong people, the wrong colored jersey. But
it worked out in the end.
And then it'll be interesting to see the Coach Pierce is going to decide who's going to be the starting quarterback. And when I watched Aiden O'Connell, if it's a clean pocket, he's as accurate as they are at short and intermediate levels. He just can't get out of his way on sacks. The 2 sacks that we're going to talk a little bit about Dallas Turner was because he kept drifting back in the pocket. He's got to get, if it's a 7-on-7 tournament, I'm drafting Aiden O'Connell first overall because of the accuracy, but he has to keep clean in the pocket. He does not take shots down the field like Gardner Minshew. Now, the Minshew magic, whatever you want to call that stuff, that he's got a little bit of fire in his belly where he's going to take some shots, and took a lot more shots down the field, made a couple nice throws down the field. So if they're going to want to be a little bit more of an explosive offense, I think Aiden O'Connell is probably a little bit better accuracy at the short and intermediate level, but it's going to be a more conservative approach, and he's not going to threaten the defense with any type of ability to scramble. Minshew is not a great athlete, but he's a little bit better athlete. But it's going to be Katie hold the bar more, because sometimes it's going to be a great throw, and sometimes it's going to be, a wow, why did you throw that type thing. So, but you're going to get, something's going to happen when the Minshew's in there. Who's
the quarterback that told you that in preseason?
Mr. Joe Webb.
Joe Webb.
Yeah. First preseason game, they were going to throw him in there. I was standing next to him on the sideline. Said, Rick, I don't know what's going to happen, but some shit is going to happen coming out.
All right, here, you're going to bleep that out, but that's a quote. That's hysterical. That's the thing with Gardner. And if you're doing the math, if you're Tom Telesco, the GM, or Antonio Pierce, or Luke Getsy, or whomever, is your best course of winning that division with steady as she goes Aiden O'Connell and dink and donkey to death, or just throw caution to the wind and hit a home run or strike out with Gardner Minshew? I don't know what the answer is, but that's what they got to figure out, because the defense will be better, but is it going to be better enough to keep Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes and those guys at bay?
No. Their defense will keep them in games, but I don't think either of these 2 quarterbacks are the answer for long-term solution in Raider land.
All right, hypothetical, because I know you love them.
Yeah, it's great.
If you could have a time machine right now and go back to draft night, would you trade up for a Michael Penix Jr. if you're the Raiders?
Whew. I don't know, because knowing Tom Telesco, he follows his board.
He never trades up, right?
Never trades up, and it's like Chris Ballard. They take good football players, and knowing that those quarterbacks went, that to have a Brock Bowers fall to you, who was maybe one of the most, even though he's a tight end, dynamic offensive playmakers that came out of last year's draft. It's my first year here. It's the Antonio Pierce's first year as a full-time head coach. I'll roll the dice with Minshew and O'Connell for a year.
It's a bold strategy.
It's not going to get me to the Super Bowl.
It's a bold strategy trying to wait out Patrick Mahomes. Oh, man. All right. I'll just say this about the Anthony Richardson. One of his incompletions, because I did make a note of this, it was an over to Kylan Granson, the tight end. He ran into his teammate who was running across or the other way. That sort of knocked him off. I don't know if that affected the accuracy, but to your point, there were some throws that could have been more accurate. Will Levis quit taking hits, please. I don't even know what the math is on that, why you would do that. Hey, Harry, throw up the graphic of the second-year quarterbacks from a year ago we were so pumped to talk about. Look who's up top there, Rick. Kenny Pickett. A year ago.
God, you were waving the Kenny Pickett flag.
I had talked myself into Kenny Pickett, who went 6 of 7 for 70 yards and a touchdown in his first preseason action, and Matt Canada. I was 2 for 2. And now we're all in that bus and it's going over the cliff. Sam Howell had a good debut week 1 last year for Washington, 9 of 12 for 77 yards. He's now in Seattle. And Malik Willis had a good showing in a game that he split time with. If I recall, I think it was a Bears game. He split time with Will Levis, and I think Will got banged up in that game and didn't play the rest of the preseason. And our buddy Pete Prisco was very nervous about the prospects of Will Levis being behind Malik Willis on the depth chart. Right now, Malik is battling Mason Rudolph to make that team, I believe. So
yep.
Things can change in a year, no doubt about it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk some training camp injuries, some other non-quarterback rookie performances of note, and I'm going to show Rick how far behind he is on the dollar bet tracker right after this.
Football action continues. Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances? As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North. It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield. Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
All right, Rick, this is the crappy part of the preseason, in addition to cutting the players, which I think you said was the hardest thing you had to do all year. Is that right?
Yep. Miserable.
The other part that stinks is when the players get injured, and we'll just focus on some of the young players here. Let's start with your Detroit Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs has a hammy, and Terrion Arnold is not expected to miss any regular season games, but he did have a chest injury. So you feel good about the fact that he can come back. I thought Ennis Rakestraw, and you'll talk about Terrion a little bit later, I thought Ennis played pretty well in his debut. I didn't watch all their snaps. I was just talking to you about that on the phone earlier this week. Jahmyr Gibbs with a hamstring, that's not something that turns around quickly, I don't think. But do you know anything more about Jahmyr's availability?
No, I think that they, because he was practicing when I was up there Monday or Sunday. Okay. So it must have just happened after I had left. So I'm sure they'll take a conservative approach. But if it's not too significant of a hamstring and Coach Campbell saying he'll be ready by opener, then that gives you about 3 weeks, which is about the norm for a mild hamstring injury.
Yep. Well, okay, that's good. There's no reason for it. He doesn't need to be out there in the preseason. J.J. McCarthy we talked about, and maybe this is a blessing in disguise in that he can just sort of focus on being the backup and getting healthy. This one stinks, and when I saw the news, I thought to what you said frequently in the last 8 months. Amarius Mims has a pec injury, the first-round pick tackle of the Bengals. He's going to be out for a while, and you're concerned with him. I thought he was unlucky with the high ankle sprain injury last year that he got rolled up on in that South Carolina game, but your bigger point is if you're not playing, you're not playing.
And there is a history, what we talked about all through the pre-draft process, of durability concerns because he can't stay healthy, and it's showing up again.
And it's hard to wrap your brain around when you see him because he's 8 feet tall and 400 pounds, and it's all muscle. But it's just one of those things.
It's not that hard to wrap your head around. If the guy's hurt, he's hurt, and he's always hurt.
Sorry, Joe Atlas. I wonder if anyone knows who Joe Atlas is besides me and you.
And who was Vic Tanny?
That I don't know. I know Joe Weider and Joe Atlas. I don't know Vic Tanny.
Vic Tanny was the guy that invented the machines in your house.
Oh, okay. There you go. All right. Malik Neighbors has an ankle. He told the media yesterday, Wednesday, August 13th, Tuesday, August 13th, excuse me, that he should be good to go. He wasn't in a boot when he talked to the media. So just something to keep an eye on. And then Hollywood Brown, who is not a youngish player, he's not a guy we've been talking about the last few years, has a sternoclavicular joint concern, 4 to 6 weeks. And I mentioned that because that means more pressure on guys like Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, and that's basically an AC joint sprain where I think, not that I'm a doctor, but there was some probably separation there that doesn't need surgery, but it needs time to slow down. I've seen a lot of times that you can get those numbed up if you had to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to play through them, but they're very painful. But I don't know if that's it or not. I'm assuming with some of the things that I've seen. And this week 2, after preseason game week 1, is the longest, most miserable part of training camp there ever is.
Why is that?
You're all excited. You know, everybody comes back like first day back at school when you report to training camp, and it's yada, yada, yada. We're running, ready to go. And that's Then you get the pads on. Rah, we're going to go out there and hit each other. Then you get into the first preseason game, and right before they're more than likely, combined practices. I'm tired of hitting our old guys. And then it's this next week. It's like, God, just stay healthy to get us through the second preseason game. Because I know we're going to probably play our guys the third preseason game. But then after you get through this second weekend of preseason, then it flies by. Because then you usually have a shorter week till your third preseason game, and then you're starting to prepare for the season. Coaches are starting to break down who their opponents are. Now you have some preseason games to look at your first week opponent. So it's just getting through this week here is the hardest, longest, most miserable week because you're like stuck. You're not ready to get ready for regular season yet. You're hoping you can stay healthy. Everybody's beat up because they've been going at it for a couple of weeks, coming out of a preseason game. Now you got to get geared up to go again for one more preseason game, and then once you get past this weekend, it's fine. But God, I used to hate this week.
So as a GM, and then as your perspective from talking to the coaches, as a GM, are you happy that they went from 4 to 3 preseason games, and the coaches want more time to see who these players could be, or were they fine with it too?
Selfishly, I love the 4th preseason game because it gave you more evaluation time. But you're getting that, I think, with some of these combined practices because there's more combined practices than there used to be because there's not a 4th preseason game.
Right. Okay.
So, but the other thing is when you guys get hurt or you have injuries, especially this week, there's absolutely no one on the street. So you're trying to bring in guys that haven't played or played in the UFL because no one's cut anyone yet. So there's just no options out there except for trying to find legs to get you through the next 2 weeks.
Were you surprised to hear that the 49ers canceled a joint practice because they ran out of bodies?
Yeah, no, not surprised at all. And then it goes back to why are all these injuries? Is it because of the way that everything is structured now? You know? Boy, when I was in training camps, it was like 3-a-days. It'd be like beat the heck out of each other in the morning, grab some lunch, go to a meeting, take a quick nap, beat the heck out of each other in the afternoon, grab a dinner, go out and do special teams practice at night or some kind of walkthrough meetings and then go to bed. It's like 14-hour days. Now, they're out of the building by 6:37 every night.
You didn't have time to get hurt. You're too busy practicing.
Yeah, too busy practicing to get hurt.
All right, let's talk about some of these other non-quarterback rookies that we had our eye on here. And let's start with our guy. By our guy, I mean your guy. You were on him higher than I was. Austin Booker out of Kansas. We talked for a time before the last few weeks of the draft that maybe at number 9, the Bears would take an edge rusher there. Dallas Turner, Leatu Latu, Jared Verse. They ended up taking Rome Odunze, probably the right pick, but they had to trade back into the draft. They only had 4 picks. They used a 5th pick to get Austin Booker on day 3. We talked about him last week. He's raw, but when I watched his snaps, he had 2.5 sacks, 5 tackle for losses. He was going against some tomato cans at the end there, but he went against the first team for a little bit. Blown away. Love the power.
No, he played for a long guy. He played with some leverage at the point, made a nice play at the line of scrimmage, especially giving effort closing from the backside.
Yep.
Solid wrap tackler. He really, what I liked about him was that he's trying to slowly build his pass rush arsenal. Right now, he's using speed to power. He's got a nice little counter move inside. I saw a couple of counter spins, but you can see that length and that athleticism. And he's not thinking. This kid is one of the rookies I've seen that is playing with some confidence, like he knows what he's doing. I don't think he's going to be the answer as a 10-guy sack opposite of Montez Sweat this year. But I do think he's going to carve out a role and give him some pretty good rushes, at least be in a rotation.
I thought he did a good job against Deion Dawkins. A couple of snaps he had against him, the left tackle for the Bills. On the right side, he went against Spencer Brown, who's about 8 feet tall. And Spencer hit him with a punch one time and stopped him in his tracks. Different type offensive tackles, and he'll have different plans. But to your point, the bull rush seemed to be working. He was knocking guys off their feet. One of the backups, number 74, the left tackle, jumped off sides early, false started, and he still walked him into the backfield near the goal line there. The hair on fire approach to chasing down the ball that you like to use the phrase. Saw a lot of that. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for optimism. He didn't look to be, at times last year, especially the Senior Bowl, I thought he was overpowered. I didn't see any of that.
No, he reminds me of this, and watching him this preseason so far, DJ Wanham, when we drafted DJ Wanham on Saturday, that long, lanky athletic that's just learning. And I think he's got a lot of upside, and I think he will be a contributor this year.
All right, let's go to another guy that we both had on our list. Jalen Wright, running back, out of Tennessee, drafted by the Dolphins because they need more speed on that team. 10 rushes, 55 yards, had a touchdown. When he gets, it's the Devin Achane conversation. When he gets to the edge, that's a wrap. He'll run between the tackles like Devin will as well. We talked a lot about Keaton Mitchell last year during the draft process, and a little burner who wasn't interested in being inside. Jalen doesn't have that concern. And I thought that in this offense, it's going to be a problem when you get all this speed on the field.
Yeah, no, there's no question. And we liked him coming out. I really liked him coming out. He led the FBS last year in plus 10-yard runs, most explosive runs in the open field out of any running back that came out. Doesn't have a lot of tread on his tire. You've seen his speed on that. They threw like a little swing or whatever screen, and he reversed his field, outrun the defense. You saw his speed there. He only had one target in the flat that was not catchable. The only negative I would have on him is that when he runs between the tackles, I just wish he was a little bit more violent and get his head pads a little lower. But he does go forward on contact, and he's always moving forward, but he needs to just be a little bit more violent when he's in between the tackles, running those inside zones. Yeah,
that's a good start. And you talk about the reverse that he ran there. Like, that usually works in high school, maybe in college, and then it gets clamped on in the NFL. It looked like he was playing high school football. That was a high school highlight, his ability to get to the corner and turn on the afterburners there. All right, next up, the guy that you've been talking about before he was born, Ben Sinnott, tight end out of Washington. He was my tight end too. I'll take credit for that. We talked to him.
I was like your tight end 8 when we started. You didn't even know who he was.
Senior Bowl. He had a great Senior Bowl. We talked to him at the combine. He was a nice young man. Fine young man. I couldn't even remember my phrase. 3 catches for 57 yards. He had one big catch there, and he is not afraid to truck some folks. What'd you think of old Ben there in his debut? He didn't catch any passes from Jayden because Jayden wasn't out there, but he did well in his time on the field.
No, poor man Sam Laporta said that at the Senior Bowl, and this guy's just a good football player. What I was most impressed with is they put him at multiple spots, outside, inside. So you're kind of seeing how they're going to use him as like a utility guy, but for an undersized tight end, I thought he got after guys blocking. To me, he was the best blocker I seen out of the tight ends I looked at, and rookie tight ends in the preseason. When he gets in the open field and he locks on guys, he's taking them to the ground now. He doesn't quit till the whistle blows, which I love that in his competitiveness. I thought that, he got a little outmanned at times when he had to go against some bigger defensive linemen, but it wasn't for lack of effort and fight in him. And then we saw the explosive catch. He does have good hands. I don't think he's as athletic as Laporta, but he's going to know how to get open. And, his run after catch, he was dragging guys down the field after the catch. So I thought for first exposure that he's going to have, I think, a significant role in that offense.
Yeah, we've talked about this draft class in some moment. The draft concluded about how good it was. They got to figure out the offensive line and left tackle. Maybe it's Brandon Coleman, maybe it's someone else. But other than that, we didn't talk about Mikey Sanders still either. I didn't go back and watch him, but I saw some clips that he had a pretty good afternoon as well. So he'll be a name to keep an eye on as we move forward here. I think we had only one other guy on your list, unless Dallas is on the list as well. I only had Terry and Arnold. Did you want to talk about Dallas as well?
Yeah, I have Dallas. I talked to Brian Thomas Jr., Jalen Polk, Trey Benson, Will Shipley.
You had all those guys?
Yeah, well, producer Harry said, so I'm up till midnight doing tape last night because producer Harry decides to send out triple homework assignment.
I didn't see that on the homework.
Yeah, I watched everybody.
Good Lord. All right. Who do you want to go to next? And I'll let you decide.
Let's talk to Dallas Turner.
All right, let's talk Dallas.
You did him, right?
No, I didn't. Edge rusher, Alabama. He's now in Minnesota.
Did you do anybody?
Yeah, I did Austin and Jalen, and I had my list of guys that I sent you.
Dallas played a lot from the 2-point, so you see how they're going to utilize him. He was pretty good setting the edge. He made a nice play off Brock Bowers at the point of attack. But other than that, wasn't much of a factor in the run game. I thought he needed to be a little bit more violent versus the run. But you can see the speed coming off the edge. He had the quarterback hip when the quarterback dropped 10 yards and didn't step up in the pocket. And he just went around the left tackle. I thought that once he gets to the quarterback level, he needs to flatten a little much. Too many times, and these rookies do that, is when they get to the quarterback level, these offensive tackles will keep riding them up the field on flattening through the outside edge of the offensive tackle or coming up with some kind of counter back to the inside. The sack he had, it was bound in the red zone where he chased the quarterback down. Now, again, those two aren't the most fleetest of foot. But I thought that he had a pretty impressive opening, especially rushing the passer, opening game.
All right. I'm looking at your list here. Good Lord, I didn't see all these names on here.
I didn't have them on my list until producer Harry sent out the rundown of the show, and then I did every guy on his list.
Harry, do you want to defend yourself?
Sure. I put all the rookies of note on there, and then we slightly adjusted what we were planning on talking about. And I send Rick an email with the rundown in it. And I update a live document for Ryan. And so the live document got updated, and I did not update the static document for Rick. So that one, I guess, is sort of on me and sort of on Rick, just not doing live.
It's not on Rick because Rick follows instructions. And if you write down 150 guys, I'll stay up till midnight and evaluate 150 guys.
Rick, you
I'll
sort
make
of
sure to let
follow
you know if we cut some guys next time.
All right, so I'm looking at the list now. Good Lord, I can't believe you did all these guys. We're not going to talk about all of them. We'll be here all day, so you just did a little extra homework. But let's talk about Will Shipley because he had 7 catches for 23 yards, and then I'll talk about Nate Wiggins on the other side in the Eagles-Ravens game. So you start with Will Shipley, the running back. I think it was a 4th-round pick, and he's not the athlete that. And I'm going to say Christian McCaffrey because they're both white running backs. He's nowhere near the athletic.
There you go.
He's nowhere near that athletic, but he's a tough hombre, to use a Rickism. So tell me about Will Shipley, and then I'll tell you about Nate Wiggins.
Yeah, he was a good football. I think he was in our top 5 last year in summer scouting school, if I recall.
That's right. You got it.
Really good football player. Maybe not the most physically assuming looking body out there, but he was very good patience. A lot of all of them are all RPO runs. And what he does is he kind of hesitates, and has that burst once that crease opens. So I really love the patience. I love the pad level that he ran with. Very efficient, kind of touchdown flat off play action in the red zone. The thing why I would have put him up there as maybe one of the best rookie performances out of all of them was he was dominant for a rookie, in my opinion, in pass protection.
Wow. He's a little guy.
Identifying the blitzes, squaring up, no issues whatsoever. And guys like this that play like this will carve out a role. Now, I know they got Barkley and they got some pretty good running backs, but this kid is going to be too good of a football player to at least not spell Barkley on some 3rd downs because he can catch out of the backfield. He can run with efficiency. But the most important thing for a rookie is I would trust him just based off of this exposure, being able to protect in pass protection. And that's why he was like a star for me.
And that you can't undersell how important that is in terms of your coaching staff trusting you not to mess something up and get your quarterback killed, right?
Yes, that is critical, huge. Extremely bright, smart football player that's a really good player.
All right, well, I'm glad that Harry gave you that homework because I wouldn't have known that about Will Shipley. I did know about Nate Wiggins, though, the 1st-round pick at cornerback for the Ravens on the other side. He looked like a grown man out there, Rick. I know he's undersized. He ran 4.3 and he got hurt. I think he's a 4.2 guy. That speed is all over the tape. He's extremely physical at the catch point. He was out there manhandling Johnny Wilson, who we saw at the Senior Bowl at 6'6", 230. I thought maybe he might move into tight end Johnny Wilson. but Johnny Wilson wasn't using his size advantage versus Nate Wiggins.
No, he didn't use a size advantage in college.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But they put Joseph Nott out there. His former teammate at Clemson had no issue with him. He's a bigger wide receiver. These guys aren't burners, but I think in terms of if he goes up against a fast receiver, I'm not concerned about him flipping his hips. So I came away impressed and sort of reinforced with what we saw last year. Now, he came downhill and he hit a running back in the backfield and tackle for loss, got hurt his shoulder. But he apparently is going to be okay, according to John Harbaugh. But to your larger point, that size, the durability issues are a concern, but it's hard to disagree with what he put on tape in that game.
No, he may be he looked like the best corner as far as coverage was.
Woo-wee.
In this first week.
That was fun. All right, let's see who else we got here. I'm not going to talk about this young man, but I wanted to mention him because he flashed when I was looking at the stats. So I went back and watched a few of his reps. You know a guy named Nate Lynn?
Nate Lynn.
Edge rusher for the Lions out of William and Mary, undrafted.
No, I did not know about
number
him.
57. He had one of the most productive stats-wise week ones of any edge rusher. So I'm back and watched him, and he was getting after it a little bit.
I think he got hurt.
He got hurt. I think he's on IR. I was like, oh, man. So that's too bad, but that was a fun watch. So I got to find out who the William Mary scout is, because they got Colby Sorsdahl from last year, the tackle. They signed Nate Lynn. William Mary's a pipeline to the Detroit Lions for football players.
That and Alabama seemed to be a pipeline.
Two big pipelines to the NFL, baby. All right, let's see. What else we got here? Why don't you talk about Trey Benson? He went 8 for 21. And I didn't watch any of the Arizona game. So you can give me some insights into what Trey Benson looks like behind. I think James Conner's the legit number one, but Trey Benson's going to carve out a role.
Yep. Yeah, he was most productive running between the tackles. He found out that even though he's fast and ran a fast 40 time, you cannot bounce it out in this league and outrun people at the edge.
Unless you're Jalen Wright.
Unless you're Jalen Wright. But few times he figured that out and kind of stayed in between the tackles. He was a very physical runner in between the tackles. He was the one that lowered his shoulder, and this was the guy that really kept his feet moving. I saw him get a lot of extra yards after contact. He just found out the speed level is a little different when you get. He had a 10-yard screen where he showed if he can get in space now, he's going to go, because he had a plus 10-yard screen and it showed his speed to go. But he's a little bit of a build-up speed type guy. So that's why maybe when he tries to bounce it outside, he's not a 0 to 60 guy. But once he gets going, then you're going to see the speed. But he had a pretty productive, solidified him as a number 2 running back, I think, off this. He only had 1 pass protection because I really love to watch when I watch the running backs, their pass pro snaps and how they're identifying and not if the coaches will trust them or not.
Right. And that's the big thing, because you're not going to get on the field if you can't block on third down anyway, right?
No. So, and I remember Adrian Peterson struggled his first year, but we're not going to take him off the field.
Yeah. Why would you have him blocking at Oklahoma anyway? You're just wasting him.
He went to Oklahoma.
All right. I'm going to talk about 2 offensive tackles that you talked about last week because they changed positions. Joe Alt went from the left side of Notre Dame to the right side for the Chargers, and J.C. Latham went from the right side at Alabama to the left side for Tennessee. And I thought both guys availed themselves nicely. The only time that Joe Alt gave up a pressure was from Uchenna Nwosu, who bull rushed him and walked his behind back into the quarterback. But whatever, that happens. You're not going to be perfect every snap. But otherwise, you forget how athletic he is in space, how strong he is, how well he moves like a tight end, even though he's enormous. And I thought J.C. Latham, and I think you talked about this throughout the draft process, better as a run blocker than a pass blocker right now. I think that showed up. He and Peter Skoronski on the left side are going to be a problem in the run game.
Yeah.
They are moving people off the ball. And I think that's exciting, especially with Bill Callahan as the OC, as the offensive line coach. And, of course, his son is the new head coach. But I think he needs –
Tony Pollard, they picked up from Dallas, is going to have a pretty nice offensive line to run behind.
Yeah, Tony and Tajay, that's a nice little 1-2 punch. But I thought if you're asking me to rank them, I think Joe Alt probably is a little further ahead right now than J.C. Latham because he's both pretty solid against the run.
Pass pro right now.
Yeah, but JC was he can hold his own.
He wasn't a fish out of water.
Right. The other name I didn't watch, but I saw some highlights of, and we'll talk about him in the coming weeks. Olu Fashanu had a pretty good start for the Jets as well, apparently. So I look forward to talking about him. And the only other guy I want to talk about, actually, there are two more things. I'm saving the best for last. But I want to talk about Jordan Whittington.
Your new found love.
Yeah. Jordan Puka Nakua Spielman Whittington. 6 catches, 74 yards. So I went back and looked at the scouting report I had from him from the fall. I thought he would be a late day 3 guy, maybe a 7th round guy. He ended up going in the 6th round. And he's a former running back who's tough in the open field, doesn't shy away from contact. This is my notes from Texas when he was at Texas. Used a lot in the quick game to get the ball in his hands and runs through arm tackles all day long. Not a precise route runner, but a really good athlete, and he will make contested catches. Those are all things we saw in that game. And he does not block like Puka Nakua. That's one of the things he has to work on. He is not at that level blocking-wise, but he will make contested catches, and he will run over dudes. And it feels like use him a lot. I think at least one time in those little sneak flat passes, they used Puka on a lot last year. And it feels like he's going to be one of these guys that's going to be a possession receiver, and he's not going to put up Puka numbers, 1,400 yards, but you trust Les Snead and Sean McVay to get the most out of these late round picks is what I'm saying.
Yeah, they have a track record and a history of it, but let's pump the brakes here a little bit.
Hall of Fame, Rick, Hall of Fame. Did you watch his catches?
No, I noticed him because when Bennett wasn't throwing it to Dallas, he was throwing it to. He made a couple of nice catches, but I was more enamored with the 5 interceptions that I watched from Bennett, bro.
Fair enough. All right, quickly, I'll mention my guy Spencer Rattler, 9-17, led a game-winning drive at the end there. Arm strength, toughness, showed a little athleticism on the touchdown run.
Easy release, good accuracy underneath those, right?
Yeah.
One nice back shoulder throw, but accuracy was off down the field.
No turnovers.
No turnovers, fighting for the number 2 spot, but he has to continue to build off this performance. Pretty good opening performance.
There we go. All right. That's a positive. That's
steady.
A+ from Rick. Yeah, he was steady. So I was happy to see that for Spencer. He ran the 4.9 or whatever. He played a little faster than that. I give him credit for being tough and getting to the edge and not taking a Will Levis hit there. All right, let's quickly go over these $1 bet recaps, and then we'll get out of here. You got the graphic for that, Harry, or is there like just a list of things? If not, I can read through them. It doesn't matter. First up, these are just the summer bets we've made, Rick, and our buddy Mike Renner's in for some of these as well because he did the summer scouting with us. And here's the thing. I'm going to allow you to change your mind if you want to. Or not. It's up to you. That's the mulligan I'm willing to give you before we get into the season and you're locked in on these bets, okay?
Yep.
All right, here we go. First up, Marvin Harrison Jr. gets at least 1,150 receiving yards as a rookie. Rick, right now you're saying over.
Over.
You're staying with that. Okay, I got the under. We talked about this last week too. Who has the most productive rookie season? We didn't decide what productive means, but we'll figure it out. So it favors me. And I grouped these guys together because they're similar body types and perhaps have similar roles. Brian Thomas Jr., Keon Coleman, A.D. Mitchell. You said A.D. You still okay with that?
Who you take?
I took the field.
Oh, you took the field.
But I can pick a player if you want. I'll take Keon Coleman.
No, you just take the field. That's fine. But you can't have A.D. Mitchell. So you can have Brian Thomas Jr., Keon Coleman versus A.D. Mitchell.
Yeah, one of those guys, not combined, but one of those guys has to have a better season than A.D. You're still with A.D. Okay. Next up, Justin Jefferson gets at least 1,350 receiving yards this season. Rick, you took the under?
Yep.
Staying with that?
Staying with that.
All right. Sam Darnold, you have your orders. This one's a crazy one. I don't know what you must have been kidnapped. This was during summer scouting, our quarterback podcast with our buddy Mike Renner. Riley Leonard of Notre Dame is drafted before Cam Ward of the U. Rick, you said yes.
Yes.
You're sticking with that?
I'm sticking with it.
I think Cam's going to have a big year. I don't know how we're going to measure this one. I don't know if producer Harry put up a poll on YouTube or not. If not, maybe you can do that. The best comp for Shedeur Sanders. Your silly comp of Donovan McNabb or my almost a silly comp, Jacoby Brissett. These are two terrible options, by the way.
No, they're not. I feel very confident in mine.
That's a terrible one. That's a Ryan Wilson.
Tell me why he's not like a Donovan McNabb.
He's not built like Donovan. He's taller than Donovan. He doesn't have as big as arm as Donovan. He's not the athlete Donovan is.
Oh my God. Did you watch Donovan McNabb?
No, he didn't go to Syracuse and play basketball. You know he's on the basketball team?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We traded for Donovan one year.
In Minnesota, right?
Yeah. He was
Oh
there
my
one
gosh.
year.
Was that from Washington? Is that where he came from?
Yeah.
Man, you're at the point now in your career where you have ties to all these teams. So
Yeah.
there's nothing we can bring up.
Every player, as I've either cut him, traded for him, signed him.
It is funny when we're sitting somewhere like at the Senior Bowl and some person will come up to you that you don't necessarily recognize immediately, but you're like, oh, yeah, I cut that guy so-and-so years ago. You don't remember cutting our buddy Leger Douzable.
Nope.
Unbelievable. All right. James Pierce Jr., edge rusher out of Tennessee, is the first edge rusher off the board. Rick says yes. Ryan says no.
Who's going to go before him?
Abdul Carter.
Oh, God, no.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay. Abdul's 259. Benjamin Morris runs a sub 4.40. That's the cornerback out of Notre Dame. Rick says yes. I said no. I don't feel great about that. I think all these kids are so fast now. Harry put 4.8 there. I did say 4.8. That was a joke, but just so we're clear, he ain't got to run a 4.8.
Okay. I can double bet you that he runs faster than a 4.8.
$1 million bet on that. All right. Next up, Denzel Burke is taken in the first round. This is a Mike Renner bet. You say yes. Mike says no. I think it's going to be close. You think just top 32, or like, are you willing to go higher than that?
I went top 32.
You willing to go top 25?
I'm going top 32.
All right. Oh, and this is a good one. I'm glad producer Harry found this one. Saving the best for last. Michael Wilson, wide receiver, Arizona Cardinals, has 1,000 receiving yards. Of course, Rick took the under because he's disrespecting all Wilsons. I'm taking the over.
Yeah, if he can play more than 10.5 games.
There it is. There it is. There it is.
Guys that are hurt in college stay hurt in the NFL.
Marius Mims will like a word. I can't believe you said that. All right, that's a wrap on episode 172, Rick. Next Tuesday, August 20th, we'll be on CBS Sports Network talking about some of our favorite players heading to the college football season. So check us out live or find us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. In the meantime, thanks to my guy, Rick. Thanks to Harry for producing, and thanks to all you guys who watch and listen. Have a great weekend, everybody.